right, welcome aboard, everybody. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. It's our Inside the Jets segment. I don't know, it's been a quiet week for the Jets. I mean, I don't know what we're going to talk about with our Jets insider from ESPN New York and the Jake Asman Show. Let's welcome him in, the great Jake Asman. What's up, Jake? How are you?
Fellas, how we doing? There is always something with the Jets. It's never winning, but they're always in the news. So on one hand, I guess that's good for someone who spends so much time talking about them every day. But on the other, it's just another reminder that all the excitement we usually have is in the offseason and never actually during the season.
Well, I asked my young partner on our live show earlier today for his gut reaction when he heard about the Sauce Gardner trade, which was the first trade that went down. And he basically explained how he was down in the fetal position and felt like he had been punched in the stomach. But now he's had a chance to regroup, and obviously another trade happened after that, and all these draft picks are sitting on the table, and suddenly, you know, the Jets have a different perspective. So let's talk about it all. First of all, let's start with Sauce. And what was your reaction, your gut reaction to the Jets dealing Sauce Gardner, something that certainly wasn't out there in the rumor mill, or it didn't seem so anyway?
Yeah, it was shocking, right? Just because there wasn't even like maybe they could move him. Like, you didn't even have that. I mean, Quinnen, less surprising because like it made sense if you think about it. And well, I'm sure we'll talk about it. Sauce came completely out of nowhere. So, I mean, I was actually live on ESPN New York when it happened. Boy Green, I know you were watching live. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. Once I saw the return and like took a step back and started to understand it, it was just too good of an offer. I get it, to pass up, but just shocking because they called him a foundational piece. They extended him. The extensions have not even kicked in yet as far as the years on those deals. And now he's gone. And it's kind of crazy. But I mean, that is just a total shock, I think, to really everyone with what they did yesterday.
Again, we're speaking with our guy, Jake Asman here. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Cam's Pizzeria. And the tagline for Cam's Pizzeria is love at first slice. You just mentioned it was an offer that just couldn't refuse. So Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, I guess it was love at first slice when they saw 2 first-round picks and some players involved on some of these deals. But Jake, is there an offer that can't be refused? Because isn't there players on your roster that you just don't pick up the phone on that are just untouchable? So you say, heck no, I don't care. You can offer me 3 first-round picks. It doesn't matter. That's our guy, because it seems like that's what the Jets said about Garrett Wilson, according to Connor Hughes of SNY. So why was Sauce Gardner in your mind? And I know I'm throwing you to defend the Jets here, but like, why was Sauce Gardner, a guy that they just signed a couple of months ago, making him the highest paid corner in NFL history, why was he not an untouchable?
Well, I mean, look, he's a defensive player in a league that's all about offense. They're 1-7, and ultimately, like, Garrett Wilson to me is untouchable because if you have a rookie quarterback next year, which they will, you need weapons for that quarterback to have a chance to not be terrible, so you don't make the Sam Darnold mistake all over again, right? So I understood why Garrett would be untouchable. Sauce, you got 2 first-round picks for a non-quarterback, right? A non-pass rusher. He's an outstanding player, but he's paid like, you know, the best corner in the league, and he's probably not that. He's probably a top 5 guy at his position. He's a good player, but I understand why they did it. To me, it was just too good of a deal to pass up.
All right, so we go from one shocking deal to another one that was still a surprise. I mean, it was out there that Quinnen Williams could be moved, but again, another guy that for a long time the Jets have considered a foundational piece. So what do you make of the Quinnen Williams deal, and do you feel the Jets got the better end of that deal?
I do. I actually think they got unbelievable return for Quinnen Williams. I wasn't sure they were going to be able to get a first. So the fact that they got a first and a second, unbelievable to me. He's a good player. He hasn't been the all-pro Quinnen Williams, though, in a couple of years. Now, maybe he's so unhappy with the situation with the Jets, and that has something to do with it. But this year, he has, 1 sack all year? So to get a first and a second for a guy who doesn't sack the quarterback, he's still very good against the run. That's an outstanding return. So I think Darren Muji should get a lot of credit for how he extracted maximum value for both Sauce and Quinnen. It's a whole separate conversation on why the Jets are in this spot in the first place. And now going forward, you know, do you trust the head coach to be here to oversee all this? I don't, but, you know, hopefully he proves me wrong. But as far as like extracting value, I was shocked they got what they got for Quinn. I think it's a terrible trade by the Cowboys. It's not like they're a Quinnen Williams away from winning. They're 3-5-1 this year. And Quinnen's good, but he's not a game changer. He's not a pass rusher. He's not a guy that is going to be able to will you to wins. He just wasn't that guy with the Jets outside of like a handful of games I could point to. So I think from a value standpoint, that to me was so impressive what they got for him.
Again, we're speaking with Jake Asman, ESPN New York, the Jake Asman Show, baby, and so much more. Jake, you're the general manager. You have 5 first-round picks for the New York Jets. What are you doing? Are you just drafting a young quarterback and trying to build around him with these picks? I've heard Damian Woody, ESPN NFL analyst and former Jet great, float out there, hey, man, why don't we just trade for a veteran quarterback instead with all these picks and go down that rabbit hole again? What would you do, Jake, if you were making the decision?
I'm taking a quarterback. Now, who? I have no idea. That's for them to decide. They now have the ammunition to trade up if they love someone and they want to get them. Like the Jets now control the draft, but I'm taking a quarterback this year. This, wow, wait till 2027 nonsense is exactly that. It's nonsense. Every year, it's always the following year that produces the better quarterbacks. It's enough, man. We said this last year about this year's class, and now it's all about 2027. You're taking a quarterback, find the right one, and hopefully that if you do find the right one, we'll know they found the right one because they put them in a position to have success. And it's not Sam Darnold all over again where you give him a terrible roster and Adam Gase. And turns out he wasn't good enough at age 21 to overcome that. He needed to develop and go somewhere else. And now look at him. So that's my big fear. But I think they're going to take a quarterback, Boyd Green, no matter what.
That doesn't sound like, Jake, you feel like this is a complete reboot. I mean, sure, they've given away 2 star defensive players, but it sounds to me like you feel like the Jets still have a pretty good foundation that if they can find the quarterback of their dreams, they have some place to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at this team offensively, you have Garrett Wilson. You have an offensive line that has 2 bookend tackles. You have a legitimate guard in Joe Tippmann. We'll see if they bring back either John Simpson or Elijah Vera Tucker on a prove-it deal. But I think the offensive line's pretty good. It's certainly the best O-line that a Jet rookie QB would be stepping into since Mark Sanchez by far. So you start there. Garrett Wilson's a legit number 1. I think Mason Taylor's been impressive as your tight end you drafted in the 2nd round. I think you look at some of the other resources they have, whether it be cap space and now draft capital, you could find a wide receiver too. I don't think the cover is bare for a rookie quarterback. We'll see what they do with Brees, but you still have Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen. Like, it's not the worst spot for a rookie quarterback. There's just major concerns with the head coach and the play caller. We don't know. And so far, it's not good for either, especially the head coach. So that to me is the concern more than the roster. I actually think, while they certainly made their defense worse, their defense was terrible with Quinnen and Sauce anyway. And now you have a lot of additional resources to address offense, which is what it should be all about anyway.
Jake, you said that you wanted to see a lot more wins, and so do I for that matter, this season for the Jets. They make this trade where obviously they're a worse team today than they were 72 hours ago by losing those talented players because the picks are not going to help them for the rest of 2025. First off, how many more wins do you see for the Jets this season? And number 2, as your barometer change, now that the Jets are obviously a lesser product now than they were 72 hours ago, does your barometer change for AG? You said you wanted to see a bunch more wins. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to do that without Gardner and Williams.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the problem that we now have as Jet fans, this regime now has a built-in excuse to be bad. And they shouldn't get it, I don't believe. But Woody gave it to them because you're not making these moves if you're on the fence about bringing back Aaron Glenn as your coach. Like, I really think, Paul, the Jets could lose by 30 plus all these games down the stretch, and he's not going to get fired because I think he now sold them on this reboot, rebuilt, however you want to describe it. So it's a built-in excuse to lose. And I think that's a shame because part of the reason why I wanted to see wins is because I didn't want to have to do the one and done talk if they finish with 2 wins or less. And we argue maybe it makes sense just to admit you screwed up with Glenn like the Patriots did with Mayo and get a real head coach for your young quarterback you're about to take. Now it doesn't matter. So whether they win or lose, nothing's changing. Would it be nice to win? I still think there's value in that. I'd love to see the O-line play well. I'd love to see these younger players that are going to be here contribute and play well. We'd love to see Jermaine Johnson, get back to his pre-injury form the rest of the way. McDonald, same thing with him on that D-line. Like there's players here that we like and want to see play well, but like, am I going to be that upset if they lose? No, because nothing's going to change ultimately. Like they're not getting rid of Aaron Glenn. Like he's the head coach now. We have to hope he improves and turns it around. That's another reason why I'd like to see wins. Like, can we feel better about this coaching staff, this regime going into what is, once again, the most important offseason we've had in forever because of the volume of picks they have and the quarterback they're about to select?
Jake, it's interesting. I mean, you just kind of answered my question. I was going to say, is it not a vote of confidence for both Muji and particularly Aaron Glenn that the Jets do this? I mean, basically, you're giving them a stay of execution. You're extending their thing. You're giving them the right to lose, as you just documented very well. So I don't disagree with you. Let me ask you about the 2 players. So do you think that this was just about looking at what we have in terms of value if you're the Jets and getting some first-round picks and some second-round picks, which they were able to pull off? Or was this that Aaron Glenn and this hierarchy looked at those two particular players, among others, and said, they're expendable. They're not part of what we would consider a cornerstone for this franchise in its present form. So do you think it was in any way a lack of confidence in those two players that might have jettisoned them off as well?
I think the record was first and foremost, despite what Glenn or Muji will say. If they had more wins, they wouldn't have done these deals. They'd be trying to win and show competency. I think this was the pivot because they misevaluated the roster. Glenn is certainly learning on the job, and I think even people who knew there would be some growing pains didn't expect it to be at times as bad as it looked. Go back to the London game for an example there, right? So I think it was a combination of like just where they were at and the value for the players being too good to pass up. Like I can't criticize them trading Sauce for 2 1s. I can't criticize them trading Quinnen. I wanted them to trade Quinnen if they got a 1. They got a 1 and a 2. So, to me, I think there's two separate conversations with the Jets, Jim. It's yes, they extracted maximum value, but you've also now guaranteed this regime more time to build it. And they were so bad so far that it's tough to believe that it's going to be different just because they now have a bunch of picks. Like we're now, for Jet fans who remember, we're now in the 2020 phase of the rebuild where we go into the offseason. We're now going to get the quarterback. The only difference is instead of having Saleh be hired with the quarterback they draft in Zach Wilson, it's now Glenn gets to be a part of picking the quarterback after he handpicked Fields, hyped up Fields, said he's never been coached properly. We're going to unlock him. We're going to allow him to play quarterback. And he's been terrible. And not to mention the everything they said about coaching being the difference and how they were going to take players and make them better, right? Oh, we're going to take guys that are 5th-round picks, make them play like 3rd-round picks. We're going to take guys that were 3rd-round picks, make them play like 1st-round picks. Like, there's just so much of what they said, and very little of it has come to fruition. So if you separate yes, they got tremendous value to well, now you're giving this regime more time, and do they deserve it? That's where I'm concerned, because now we're locked in. Like, there's no escape route like the Patriots had with Mayo to go to Vrabel. Now we're locked into a coach who I think has been terrible 8 games into his tenure.
And now we have ripple effects here, Jake. So, okay, Sauce Gardner gets traded. Whoa, that was stunning. Quinnen gets traded. That's shocking. We thought that there was a chance he could get traded. He gets traded. But what about the players that didn't get traded? Let's start off with Breece Hall. All kinds of drama. He apparently, through NFL insider Jordan Schultz, says that he wants to be out. He doesn't want to be here after seeing some of the trades earlier in the day, working with backup quarterback, now analyst Ben Kurt, and sharing his message of not wanting to be on the team and championing that. That was very weird. And now he's still on the team. And Aaron Glenn said, on Wednesday that he always wanted Breece Hall to be on the team, and all the rumors were just nonsense rumors. Can the Jets fix this? Because if it's true that Breece Hall doesn't want to be here, can they convince him in the final 8-9 games of the season that actually we want you to be here and we're going to extend you and make you a part of this? Or is it a lost cause and he's just inevitably going to leave or get franchise tagged in the offseason? We have more Breece Hall drama to come.
I sure hope that they can get something done. I don't think they're going to, though, which is why I'm confused why they didn't trade him. If it's true they had a 4th on the table and they didn't take it, if they lose him for nothing, I think it's a bad job by this regime. If they end up extending him or they use the transition tag on him, let's say, okay, like great, because I want Breece here. I wonder what the dynamics are now in that locker room after it's known he wanted out. But winning cures all, right? If Breece plays well and he's still going to be motivated to play well, the better he plays, the more money he gets, if not from the Jets, then from someone else. Maybe things change, but I am surprised if they had a 4th on the table. They chose to trade Quinnen and Sauce, that they didn't just make the deal. But, Glenn has said he likes Breece. Okay, but could we get him now signed beyond just this year? I think that's the right move when you're going to take a quarterback in the top 3 in this draft coming up.
Manchild Show with Boyd Green Digital, talking with Jake Asman, the Jake Asman Show on ESPN New York. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Cam's Pizzeria. By the way, if you like what you're hearing, hit the old thumbs up while you're watching the video. 30 seconds, just hear a little bit more about our friends at Cam's. We're back with more questions on the Jets.
When you think of Cam's Pizzeria, think about two of your favorites. Their zesty buffalo chicken wing pizza or their tasty chicken bacon ranch. Over 16 specialty pizzas made fresh daily with the best ingredients. Indulge in their homemade calzones, subs, wraps, salads, and their famous cannolis for dessert. They're all made with love just for you. Order online for 10% off at camspizza.com. Locations in Camillus and Oswego. Cam's Pizzeria. It's love at first slice.
All right, back on the Manchild Show with Boyd Green Digital, talking with Jake Asman, all things New York Jets. We're inside the Jets. The Jets, obviously, the biggest mover and shaker in the trade deadline, the NFL trade deadline, which came to a close yesterday at 4 o'clock. Some shocking moves by the Jets, to say the least, jettisoning off two cornerstone pieces on their defense, but hopefully out to find their next quarterback. So, Jake, you say they got to take him this year. I know we're way far away from the draft, but who are some of the prospects? Who are some of the guys out there that the Jets should be taking a close look at now to decide whether or not this guy's going to be a franchise quarterback at the NFL level?
This could change a lot from now until the draft, as it usually does, but it feels like the three you hear the most about: Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, Dante Moore from Oregon, and Ty Simpson from Alabama. Each guy is unique. One guy in Mendoza has played the most college football, and he's actually eligible for the draft and has to come out. Like, he has no eligibility left, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The other guys, it's not a lock they would come out, although if they're considered top 5 guys, they're going to. So I think it's very early to know for sure how, like, it plays out, but it feels like there's like a tier developing, and it's those three as the tier 1, a likely top 15 quarterbacks in this year's draft.
All right, let's go to, so the Jets jettisoned off these pieces. Someone else now has to step up. So Azareye'h Thomas, the rookie out of Florida State, has the unenviable task of, go fill that Sauce Gardner spot, the highest paid corner in football in that secondary. What's your confidence level in whatever he's going to be able to provide? Because he's going to get plenty of opportunities. And AG, he's a former cornerback that played in the league for 15 years at the highest level. And with the way Brandon Stevens has turned it around, that AG defensive coaching seems to be working. Does that give you any inspiration for what we could see from AZ Thomas for the rest of the year?
I was encouraged what we saw from AZ against Cincinnati. I mean, part of the reason I do think Sauce was expendable was obviously the return, but they used a 3rd-round pick on AZ. Stevens, after a brutal start, has been good of late, so that's encouraging. They obviously have hit a home run, in my opinion, with the Brownlee trade and what he's been able to do in the nickel, replacing Michael Carter. So I actually don't think like their corner room is terrible. They don't have Sauce, who's an all-pro, but like if AZ Thomas is good, you feel a lot better about the trade. So I think that's a big X factor moving forward, and why I would like to see them not just tank and be awful. Like, if they win a game because AZ Thomas has a great interception at the end, we're going to be mad if we're Jet fans. Like, he's a part of your future now. So like, I think if they're winning games because Frank Gore had a carry to get them a first down and cost them Trevor Lawrence, I get being mad, right? That coaching staff was getting fired. That roster was a joke. What I think is frustrated me so much about Aaron Glenn and this regime, they didn't take over an awful situation. There's players here. They just traded 2 of them for huge returns because they're good players. So, like, that's why I get so annoyed when it's, what did you expect, Jake? Aaron Glenn has to tear it down. That's not what he said, not what he did. And his actions were to actually keep a lot of these guys that have been here because they were going to coach them up. So, yeah, man, I'm sorry for my Glenn rant, but AZ Thomas, 100%. It's someone you want to see play well, and Glenn and Muji get credit if he does play well.
Well, Jake, first off, let me thank you for that Frank Gore memory. I've been really, I was like, oh, yeah, let me get that memory for a couple of years ago, so I appreciate that. But with that ghost of Frank Gore past hanging over my shoulder here in the holiday season, it makes me start to think about, like, the Allen Lazards on the roster. Shouldn't we just dump this guy? The trade deadline's gone. Who cares now, especially because I was going to say the season is about winning, and if it was, I don't even know why Allen Lazard would have been a part of that anyway. But, like, don't you want to get evaluations of Arian Smith? Adonai Mitchell, the guy who just got John Mechie III. Who gives a crap now? Let's get rid of some of those kind of veterans. I'm not saying like a crazy fire sale, but the veterans that obviously have no long-term future here, get rid of them and let's just turn it over to the youngsters.
Plus, before you answer that, Jake, Pittsburgh didn't get a receiver at the trade deadline. So, maybe Aaron Rodgers will invite him over there. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do not understand why Lazard is still here. The fact that Lazard is still on this team and Sauce Gardner isn't, it's like, mind-boggling, right? Like if you told a Jet fan that a year ago, they'd be like, "What?" But it's crazy, right? Look, I will say I like the idea of bringing in these receivers in Mechie and Mitchell who are talented that will get an opportunity to play because the Jets, let's be honest, have one legit receiver, and outside of that, if you could show any potential, you'll get a chance to play on this team. So if we ever have to see Alan Lazard take reps again, that's just a terrible job by this coaching staff. Like now it should be all about playing your young players that are here potentially beyond this year and the following year. So yes, Mitchell, play. Mechie, play. If they show you anything, great. I like the idea of betting on guys that were second-round picks not that long ago. Mitchell was a second-round pick a year ago, and let's see what he could do. So from that standpoint, I do like that aspect of some of these deadline moves they made.
Jake, do you keep all 5 picks? Is there any question about what you do with these picks? Are you making 5 first-round draft picks if you're the Jets in the next 2 years, or is there something else to think about here in terms of how you work these picks?
I think if the Jets could maybe have like a scenario play out where they could move back and get extra picks, that should be the move they do this year. Get your quarterback, obviously see what other needs you have going into that second first round pick where it ends up with the Colts. But if you told me you could trade out of the first round and maybe get a 1 next year from a team that's desperate for a quarterback coming up, or you could get an extra 2 this year and another day 2 pick next year, like that, this is the flexibility you now have because you're getting your quarterback and you have 2 second-round picks with that additional first-round pick this year. And then obviously if you needed to move up, Jim, for one of these quarterbacks, say, hey, you're at pick 4, Tennessee is at pick 1, you got to go up from 4 to 1 so you can control the draft and pick your guy. If you had to trade away one of your 2s this year, one of your 2s next year, and a 1 next year, you still have plenty of picks and you get the guy you want. So it gives you unlimited flexibility to get the players you want. But I would love to see a scenario where maybe they move down and get extra picks and kind of continue to stack the deck and get more chances at picking players if it makes sense. But ultimately, it comes down to the quarterback. The Jets hit on a lot of their picks under Joe Douglas, except Zach Wilson. And that pick is the reason why this core of players, 2 of them they traded yesterday, never won more than 7 games when they were Jets.
And it always the quarterback, doesn't it? Go ahead, Boy Green.
Yeah. There's a Jets game on Sunday coming off this bye. So Jets Browns, getting that in the mix as Lurch is talking about on our live show, the toilet bowl we have there for Tankathon and the draft and all that. But this still feels like, the Jets won a game without Sauce in the Bengals week. Quinnen, sometimes they've had, games where he hasn't been on the field. Like the Jets can beat the Browns, right? I know I'm going a little higher register here, but come on, man.
They definitely can beat the Browns. Like the Browns are averaging 15.8 points per game. Like they're not any good, but the problem is the Jets aren't either. And I just think so much of what we saw against the Bengals, at least offensively, is probably a huge outlier. So what version of Fields do we get against a good defense? And I also wonder about the motivation level for the Jets in this game. Like, how do they come out after the bye, knowing that the franchise basically said this year no longer matters from a winning standpoint when you trade away your 2 best players on defense. So it's a tough game to prognosticate. Would I be surprised if the Jets won? No. Am I going to be surprised if they lose? I mean, definitely not. Like, this is a team that outside of this past game against the Bengals had not scored a first half touchdown since September 7th in week 1. So I got to see more before I'm confident in the Jets winning any game.
Jake, would you be encouraged? So we don't know what we're going to see. The whole team could go like, obviously this season doesn't matter. They could lay flat on their back and just roll over and die against Cleveland. But there's another reality where they're like, hey man, like, okay, those guys are gone, but we can rally around this. If they show that kind of chutzpah, energy, whatever coming out, is that a major tip of the cap to AG and the coaching that they were able to sort of keep this team engaged and have that kind of performance, even though, it's the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, look, I think if they come out and look good, look prepared, that's awesome. I mean, BG, the Jets' record off their bye week the last 9 years? Do you know it off the top of your head?
What is that?
1-8 the last 9 seasons following the bye week. Like this is not just a Salah/Obrick problem or Gase or Bowles. Like this dates back all the way to like the end of Rex. Like they are so bad off bye week. So yeah, if they look good after all this, just like I thought Glenn deserved credit for how they played after Woody's ridiculous comments about Fields to come out and rally around that and Fields to play well, I gave Glenn credit for that. like, to me, if they look good Sunday in this hypothetical scenario, then sure, I think they get a lot of credit for that. But it's just tough to feel that way right now. But I would love to be wrong.
All right. My advice to you two guys, root for the young guys to play well and
Yeah,
you
all right.
lose. All right.
I got no problem with that. None.
So many losses.
What about that, Jake? I mean, obviously, we all as football fans root for our teams to win, but there is a point at which it benefits you to lose. And the Jets are looking for the quarterback of their dreams. And if they could be number 1 or number 2 in the draft, your chances of taking a swing at that and getting at least exactly and precisely the guy you want without having to give up any assets is a lot higher. Doesn't mean you're going to hit it every time. Looks like the Giants hit it, and they hit it late in the first round last year. So, and we've seen teams hit it in the second round, in the third round, and even later. But what are the thoughts here about how the Jets ought to operate this year, knowing what's at risk for the future?
I think you can't be concerned about, winning too many games and affecting the tank. Like, we can't control it as fans. How we root has no impact, Like, let's see this team go out there and the young players play well. If they lose, great. I'm not going to be upset. If they win, like, am I going to be devastated? We just talked about the fact they now have extra draft capital, so they could wheel and deal and move up if they want to get someone. And also, I do this rant all the time, and it's unfortunate I got to do it every year related to the Jets because they're always in the conversation for do we win or tank?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the last 10 quarterbacks drafted first overall. You know how many Super Bowls combined they all have?
Mm-hmm.
0.
Oh.
0. And really, only 2 of the last 10 quarterbacks that were drafted first overall, you could say definitively worked out for the teams that drafted them. And that's Andrew Luck, who's now retired, and Joe Burrow, who's always hurt. So, like, even those guys, there's question marks. Like Goff and Baker, they're having success on different teams. You go down the line, like Trevor Lawrence is not generational. Caleb Williams is a huge question mark. Cam Ward, we don't know yet. Like, just keep rattling off first overall picks. Like, to me, it's not about having the first pick, and it's not even about having the first chance to pick the quarterback in the draft class. So many times the best quarterback in the draft class is not even the guy that goes first off the board. So to me, it's about the infrastructure, the coaching. They'll be able to get a quarterback. Where my fears are this head coach and regime being here to oversee that quarterback's development. That's what concerns me at this point.
All right, Jake. Well, it has been a fascinating week for Jets fans.
It always is.
It always is. It's never a dull moment in Jets Nation, and it will continue. Jake Asman, as always, man, appreciate your insight. Thank you, buddy.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me, as always.